Hi, I'm Chris,
And I'm Eli.
and we are the Landlord Gurus. We've been managing our own rental property for decades now, and we've created this show to share our experiences, tips, and best practices we've refined over the years. Thanks for joining us, whether you found us on YouTube or our podcast or at landlordgurus.com. Before we get started, just a reminder to like, share, and subscribe so you'll get notified when we put out new content.
Okay, in today's episode, we're going to chat, as we do sometimes, about a recent experience that we've had and what we learned from it, and share with you some of our experiences and learning. So, Chris, you just had a bit of a snafu with collecting rent recently. Didn't you? You want to tell us about what happened?
Yeah, we did. And it's somewhat embarrassing because we talk about best practices with rent collection a lot. And in this case, this is a sort of a legacy tenant from a property that, has been managed by various people over the years, and a tenant who has been there for a long time and, was paying rent via kind of direct bank transfer into the owner's account from their account.
So,
Uh,
how does that work, Chris? Just so for people who
so I think that
haven't done
they,
that.
yeah, I think that they're able to, you have the account number, routing number of the owner's account, and then they can direct their bank to, it's like an ACH deposit, but it's not done through property management software or anything. They set up their own instructions, I suppose, through their bank.
Right. Okay.
From what I understand, it's, some banks make it easy. Some banks make it a little bit harder. Maybe if it's the same bank, whether it's Wells Fargo or whatever, maybe that's slightly easier. I don't know, but this tenant has been doing it this way for a long time,
Right.
without any problems, and it's worked fine. And so, rather than try and move them onto a rent collection software, we've just sort of just let them continue, make it, frictionless as possible for them, just to continue doing it the way they've always done.
Right. If it's not broken, type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so I guess it was about 9 or 10 months ago now, because I'm currently renewing her lease for another term. But when we previous did a lease renewal, we had done a rent increase as well. Everybody agreed on the terms. We signed it and everything. And she just, when the new term started, she started paying the new amount, or what she thought was the new amount, or mistakenly was paying $10 less.
No.
And I think it's just a purely honest mistake. There was no ill intent there at all. I think she just either made the connection wrong, after she signed and the one thing here, right, in Seattle, you give your rent increase notice 6 months in advance. And most likely she forgot what that new rent was, even though we signed 60 days in advance. But
it's a significant,
maybe she just forgot.
well, you and I have talked about this, the protocol for having to send notices of any rent change 6 months in advance, and then being able to remember and track and follow up on that is really significant.
It is. It's sort of an organizational issue. You got to be organized and track and do a lot of things at the right time.
Yeah. But the paper, so the notice that was sent had the correct amount on it,
Had the correct amount. Yep.
But when she set up payments, it was $10 less than that agreed on amount.
Yeah. Exactly. Like I said, the notice had the correct amount. The lease extension document signed had the correct amount. It was just purely, and she just made that mistake when she input her instructions through her bank.
Right.
And again, because it was so long ago, I guess, I forgot exactly. The owner probably forgot, or more likely just saw the new rent come in and didn't even think about it, or didn't even notice there was a mistake or anything. And this has been going on now for 10 months.
And you weren't looking at the owner's bank account either.
I wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is an arrangement where you don't have a trust account, where you're not bringing the money into your account before and then paying the property manager.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. It's just being deposited straight to the owner's account.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see it.
So you wouldn't know.
No, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know using this process.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So what's here? Now okay. So what did you learn, Chris?
Well, so setting up the new lease extension, we did not raise rent on her this time. And so I was just creating the lease extension agreement. And when it came time to sign, the tenant again didn't pick up the difference in price. The owner was like, wait, I thought she was paying $10 less. And I'm like, no, it should be this amount. And like, oh, she's been paying this amount for the last 10 months. And so I contacted the tenant and they're like, oh, I didn't even, I totally messed up. My fault, So I guess, to what I learned or what I, had the best way to have caught this would have been if we were using the rent collection software, right?
Right.
You set up the amount that is due, that the lease specifies, and they pay, if there's a mistake and they pay $10 short, it would show up in the software as a balance due.
Right.
So,
because you create the settings in the property management software,
right.
or the rent collection software. We've written about lots of them and talked about a lot of them. Pay rent, pretty much just focuses on rent collection, and others, which there'll be some links to below, do much more, and we've written lots about that. But it essentially, in either case, you go in and you set the term out, what the dates are and what the amount is. So, like you said, a flag goes off if they pay a different amount.
Or in a lot of these softwares, you can allow or not allow partial payments, right? So I'm using Gazebo, and I'm using Gazebo for this same property that the person's at, but just this renter is not on it yet.
Right.
There is a toggle that's allow partial payments,
right?
And it's toggled off, and so if I'm not allowing partial payments, they would not even be allowed to pay a non-full payment,
right? And the reason for that usually is so that people can't string along eviction processes by sending a little bit of money towards a debt, which in most places, if not all, resets the calendar. That's the real reason that feature is generally there. But
exactly, it would have saved us here in this case as well. So
right, yeah, okay. So what's happening now?
Well, so I offered, hey, we have transitioned to new rent collection software. We did the lease extension through the software through Gazebo as well. So they're now set up through the software. You can pay your rent through there now, and here's all the benefits of it. Not only do we avoid situations like this, but you can auto schedule all your payments in advance. You don't have to think about it. It can just come out of your account.
Right.
So I don't know what she's going to decide. I think I'm not going to require her to use it, even though maybe it's arguable whether you should or not. But again, this is a long-term tenant. I don't want to rock the boat too much and make things too difficult for them. But hopefully they see the benefits and they will choose to sign up to use it, because there are a lot of benefits for them as well.
Yeah. And that for landlords, some of the other benefits of using property management software or rent collection software to collect rent are that they can set and forget, just like you said. In most cases, you can set automatic late fees, and you can set what the grace period is and how much it is, and even in some cases, whether or not there's a flat late fee and then a certain amount per day. What's allowed varies by state to state and city to city, so you have to know what's allowed. But those types of settings are there so that you don't have to go and get a notice form and send it to them. You're late, and here's how much you have to pay. And all the accounting is there as well, right? For this,
exactly,
for your any given tenant, but also your entire rent roll is then there. And in many cases, you can also send payments for specific tenants or properties to specific bank accounts. And actually, this would have been a way that Chris could have done this. Because, you still could have had your client's bank account set up in your property management software and have the money go directly there. You wouldn't have to change that part of what you're doing.
Right. Exactly.
And there are other things too, like the person-to-person type payments, like Zelle and Venmo and that type of thing. Sometimes they can be reversed. There are various reasons that we've written about not to do that. I think it's Zelle where there's a daily maximum. So people pay the whole
exactly. There are a lot of downsides to that, and yes, we've written a lot about this. In fact, I'll just plug our online class as well. That there's a whole unit about rent collection. And we talk about all these issues. We talk about best practices and in more detail. And, you can go back and rewatch things again if you don't catch it the first time, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's all kind of laid out there.
Links
and
in
it
the
talks
notes.
about some of them. Yeah, there are links in the notes.
Well,
Exactly. So,
all right.
If you want to check out the course as well, we'll put a link here in the description as well.
Anything else we had to take away from this experience?
Well, I guess, here's a question I'll throw back to you or anybody else watching. So what would you do about this shortage of the 10 months at, $10 a month. So it's $100 shortfall. It's, you could go either way,
I
right?
charge 'em.
It's, kind of both parties to a degree, I guess. We could have caught it,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I think it's, it sounds to me like it's clear enough that you did your part, and you not catching it shouldn't be a reason that you don't get paid back. I would charge it, and I'm using Turbo Tenant. There's a way to create a one-time charge or recurring charge. So I just go into Turbo Tenant and I'd say create a charge on this account once, like this person to come on board. And I'm with you with not compelling people to use software if they don't feel comfortable, even though it is better for all parties. But I'd go in, I'd set up a one-time charge, and the description is missed, $10 per month, or
Yeah. I'd be inclined to allow them to pay this on a payment plan as well, if they needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Another $20 a month, $30.
Yeah.
It's always good to work with people, and everybody makes mistakes. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
all right. Well, should we leave that one there and come back another day?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. And again, a reminder to subscribe, like us, share it, get notified for when new episodes come out.
Thanks for watching.